He pulled her hair. She pulled out his soul. Part 1. Sarah had been sitting in the negotiation room for 6 hours straight. Her back hurt. Her head hurt. And Commander Al was still talking about the glorious benefits of joining the Empire as a protectorate world. The commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, with dark blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. His 3-fingered hands moved as he spoke, graceful and deliberate. Behind him, 4 other officials sat perfectly still, watching the humans with golden eyes that never blinked. Sarah glanced at General Martinez sitting beside her. The general's jaw was tight, his hands folded on the table. On her other side, Doctor typed notes into her tablet, her expression carefully neutral. They were Earth's best negotiators, and they were getting nowhere. "We appreciate your offer," Sarah said for the 10th time that day. "But we need time to discuss these terms with our government. The proposal requires significant changes to Earth's sovereignty." Al's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand. This is not a negotiation. This is a courtesy. 47 species now thrive under protection. You will be the 48th. "Or we decline," Sarah said firmly. "That's how negotiations work, Commander." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The others shifted in their seats. Al leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. "Decline." His voice was soft, dangerous. "Humans are young, impulsive. You do not comprehend what you refuse." Sarah stood up. She'd had enough. "This meeting is over. We'll reconvene tomorrow after we've had time to review your documents." She turned toward the door. She didn't see Al move. One moment he was across the table, the next his hand was in her hair, yanking her backward. Her head snapped back, pain exploding across her scalp. She stumbled, caught off balance. In culture, it was a dominance display, a reminder of hierarchy. Among his people, the gesture demanded submission. But Sarah was human. Something inside her broke, not her spirit, but a barrier she didn't know existed. The pain, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of this alien putting his hands on her violated every boundary she had. Rage flooded through her like electricity, pure and incandescent. Her vision went white at the edges. She didn't think, she just reached. Her hand came up, fingers spread, and she grabbed at something she couldn't see but could definitely feel. It was like plunging her hand into ice water and fire simultaneously. Something solid and slippery writhed in her grip, trying to escape. She held on with everything she had and pulled. Al screamed. It wasn't a sound she'd ever heard before, high and sharp and full of terror. His hand released her hair. His body went rigid, back arching impossibly. His golden eyes rolled back until only white showed. Then he collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, his massive body hitting the floor with a tremendous crash. The other leaped to their feet, chairs toppling backward. One of them made a choking sound. Another pressed both hands to his mouth. They stared at Sarah with expressions of absolute horror. General Martinez had his sidearm drawn, pointing at the nearest. Doctor stood frozen, eyes wide. Sarah looked down at her hands. They were shaking, and they were holding something. She couldn't see it, not exactly, but she could feel it. Heavy, ancient, terrified, it pulsed in her grip like a bird's heart, fast and desperate. The sensation made her want to vomit. "What did you do?" one of them whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. Sarah stared at Al's body on the floor. His chest rose and fell, so he was breathing, but his eyes were empty, staring at nothing. "I don't know," she said honestly. They backed toward the far wall, pressing themselves against it. They looked at Sarah like she was a monster. "You took his soul," they whispered. "But that's impossible. Humans don't have the gift. You don't have the structures. You can't." "Can't what?" General Martinez demanded, his weapon still raised. The alien's throat worked. "Soul extraction, it is what we do, what we've always done. It's how we conquered 47 worlds." He pointed a trembling finger at Al. "We reach into a being and take their consciousness, their essence. We pull out their soul. They die instantly or they survive as empty shells. He looked at Sarah with something like awe and terror mixed together. But only we can do this. Only. We have special organs, neural pathways that evolved over millions of years. Humans have nothing like that. You shouldn't be able to. Doctor's tablet clattered to the floor. Oh my God, that's how you conquered everyone. You can just rip out souls. Could, the corrected softly. Until 30 seconds ago, we thought we were the only ones. Sarah's legs felt weak. She sat down heavily in her chair, still holding the invisible weight in her hands. She could feel it more clearly now. Thoughts that weren't hers brushed against her consciousness. Fear, confusion, pain. This was a person she was holding, a living, thinking being trapped in her hands. How do I put it back? She asked urgently. The shook his head. You can't. Once a soul is extracted, it cannot be returned. The body lives on without it in a vegetative state, or we can. He stopped. Can what? Martinez growled. Consume it. We can absorb extracted souls to strengthen our own. That's what extraction is for. The room fell silent. Sarah looked down at the thing in her hands, horror crawling up her spine. She was holding Commander Al's soul, his entire being, everything he was, trapped in her grip. And she had no idea what to do with it. The door burst open. Security personnel rushed in, weapons drawn, shouting orders. More appeared behind them, pressing forward to see. When they saw Al on the floor and Sarah sitting there with her hands cupped around nothing, they went silent. One elderly pushed through the crowd. His skin was paler than the others, almost gray with age. He wore elaborate robes marked with symbols Sarah didn't recognize. He looked at Al, then at Sarah, then at her hands. Impossible, he breathed. Show me. Sarah didn't know what he meant, but she held out her hands, still cupped around the invisible weight. The old's eyes widened. He reached out, then jerked his hand back as if burned. I can feel it, he said. Al's essence, she truly holds it. He looked at Sarah with an expression she couldn't read. How? Humans have no soul-touch organs. Your brains don't have the psionic cortex. You're biologically incapable of this. I was angry, Sarah said quietly. He grabbed my hair, he hurt me, and I just reached. I didn't know what I was doing, I still don't. The elderly studied her for a long moment. Emotion, he said finally. Raw emotion. We use specialized organs and decades of training to touch souls, but if emotion alone could provide the bridge. He shook his head slowly. No species has ever fought back against soul extraction, because no one else can touch souls without the gift, but if humans can do this through pure feeling. This changes everything, another said from the doorway. The old one nodded gravely. Yes, yes it does. General Martinez stepped forward. Commander Al assaulted a member of my negotiation team. Whatever happened next was self-defense. Self-defense, the elderly repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. You don't understand what you've done. In 10,000 years of expansion, no being has ever successfully resisted soul extraction. No one has ever taken a soul from us. We've been unstoppable because we held a power no one could match. He looked around the room at the assembled humans and, until today. Sarah felt the weight in her hands pulse again. She could sense Al's consciousness more clearly now, his confusion, his fear, his regret. He hadn't meant to trigger this. He'd only meant to assert dominance the way he would with any subordinate species. But he'd touched a human, and humans, it seemed, could touch back. I want to return it, Sarah said. This isn't mine to keep. I don't want it. I just want to fix what I broke. The old's expression softened slightly. A kind sentiment, but impossible. Once extracted, a soul cannot be returned. You hold his essence now. You can absorb it for strength as we do. You can hold it until it fades, or you can release it into nothing, letting Al's consciousness dissolve into the universe. Those are your only options. Sarah looked down at the commander's empty body on the floor. His chest rose and fell steadily. His face was slack, expressionless. Somewhere in her hands, the real Al waited, trapped and terrified. "No," she said firmly. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." "Then I'll find one." The elderly smiled sadly. "Humans, so certain, so stubborn. Perhaps that's why you could do what no others could." He gestured to his companions. "We will take Al's body for medical care, and you, Sarah, will be hearing from the Empire very soon. What you've done today will echo across the galaxy." "Is that a threat?" Martinez asked, raising his weapon again. "A statement of fact," the old said. "The balance of power just shifted, and we must all decide what that means." They carried Al out on a stretcher, his eyes still staring at nothing. The other filed out after him, casting backward glances at Sarah. The elderly one paused at the door. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "Al was wrong to touch you. Our customs are not your customs. Perhaps we've grown too arrogant, too certain of our superiority." He tilted his head. "Guard that soul carefully, Sarah, and guard yourself. There are those in the Empire who will see you as a threat that must be eliminated." Then he was gone, and Sarah sat alone with her colleagues, holding the soul of an alien commander in her trembling hands, wondering what she'd just unleashed upon her world. Part 2. 3 days after the incident, Sarah still held Al's soul. She tried to sleep, but the moment she relaxed her mental grip, the essence began to slip away, dissipating like smoke. So she stayed awake, drinking coffee and staring at her hands, feeling the weight of an alien consciousness pressing against her own. Doctor had assembled a team of neuroscientists, psychologists, and the few humans who claimed to have psychic abilities. They gathered in a secure facility beneath Geneva, away from the media frenzy that had erupted across Earth. News of humanity's new ability had spread fast. Too fast. "Your brain scans are normal," Doctor said, studying her tablet. "No unusual structures. No psionic cortex like the have. By all biological metrics, you shouldn't be able to do what you're doing." Sarah shifted in her chair. She hadn't left this room since they brought her here. "Then how am I doing it?" "The leading theory," Doctor looked up. "Will, pure, desperate will, channeled through extreme emotion. You created a connection that shouldn't exist through sheer force of feeling." A woman named Wei entered the room. She was in her 70s, a Buddhist meditation teacher who'd spent decades studying consciousness. She'd been brought in after claiming she understood what Sarah had done. "May I?" Wei asked, gesturing to the chair beside Sarah. Sarah nodded. She was too tired to argue. Wei sat quietly for a moment, then spoke. "In my practice, we talk about the nature of consciousness, how it connects all things. Science says we're separate beings, isolated in our own skulls, but contemplatives have long believed otherwise. That consciousness is a shared field and we're all touching the same ocean." "That's philosophy," Doctor said. "We need science." "Perhaps you need both," Wei replied gently. "The developed biological organs to access something that may be fundamentally non-biological. They built hardware to touch software, but humans have always accessed consciousness through emotion. Love, rage, grief. These feelings bridge the gap between minds." Sarah felt Al's presence pulse in response to the words, as if he was listening. "When that commander grabbed you," Wei continued, "you felt violated at the deepest level. Your boundary was crossed, and in that moment of pure rage, you reached across a boundary you didn't know existed. You touched his consciousness with yours." "Can she learn to control it?" Doctor asked. "Can you learn to control rage?" Wei countered. "Or grief, or love? These aren't skills, they're states of being. Sarah didn't learn to do this, she just did it." The door opened. General Martinez entered with two others. One was a young man in military uniform, his eyes red from crying. The other was an elderly woman leaning on a cane. "These are the ones we found," Martinez said. "After your incident went public, we had reports from around the world, people claiming they've pulled souls. Most were fake or delusional, but these two," he paused, These two are real. The young soldier's name was James. He'd been in combat when his unit was ambushed. His best friend died in his arms. I was holding him, James said, his voice shaking, screaming at him not to go, and I felt something leave him. I grabbed it without thinking. I've been holding Soul for 2 days now. He looked down at his hands with an expression of anguish and wonder. The elderly woman was named. Her wife had been dying of cancer. She took her last breath and I felt her start to leave. I couldn't let go, I just held on. I've been holding her ever since. Sarah looked at them both and felt a kinship she'd never expected. They understood. They knew what it was like to hold a consciousness in your hands, to feel another being's thoughts pressing against your own. So it's not just me, Sarah said. It's never just one person, Doctor replied. The question is how many humans can do this, and under what circumstances? The answer came faster than anyone expected. Within a week, reports flooded in from across Earth. A mother who grabbed her drowning son's soul as he slipped away, holding it until paramedics revived him. A husband who accidentally tore out his attacker's soul during a robbery. A nurse who pulled a patient back from death through sheer desperation. Not everyone could do it. Most people couldn't, even in extreme circumstances, but enough could, enough to matter. And the noticed. The first attack came on Luna Colony. Sarah watched the footage from Earth, still holding Al's soul, still unable to sleep. They sent a diplomatic ship, asking for a meeting to discuss the situation. When the colony administrator agreed, 20 warriors emerged from the ship. They were Soul Guard, the elite, warriors trained from birth in extraction. They moved through Luna Colony like death itself, touching people and leaving empty bodies in their wake. Screams echoed through the corridors. The few armed security guards fell before they could raise their weapons. Then they encountered a woman named Diana. She was a mining engineer, built like a boulder, with arms thick from years of hauling equipment in low gravity. When a soul guard touched her teenage daughter, pulling the girl's soul right out of her body, Diana didn't freeze. She roared. The footage captured it all. Diana grabbed the warrior with both hands and pulled. The soul guard's scream cut off abruptly as his body went rigid. Diana stood there, holding 2 souls now, her face twisted in grief and rage. The other soul guard retreated. They'd never retreated before. But they came back. More attacks followed. Earth's colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan all faced Soul Guard incursions. They clearly intended to demonstrate their dominance, to show that humans were still prey despite this new ability. They didn't expect humans to fight back with souls as weapons. The battle on Mars became legendary. A Soul Guard squadron attacked Olympus Station, expecting easy targets. Instead, they found a community that had lost friends and family in previous attacks. Grief and rage ran deep in those corridors. When the Soul Guard entered the main habitat, they were met by 70 humans who'd learned what Sarah had accidentally discovered. People who'd lost loved ones and channeled that loss into something terrible and new. Minors who'd watched friends die. Parents who'd buried children. Spouses who'd said impossible goodbyes. They pulled souls like they were harvesting fruit. The Soul Guard fell, every single one. Their bodies lay empty in the Martian dust while humans stood over them, holding consciousness in trembling hands, horrified by what they'd done. Back on Earth, Sarah watched the reports and felt sick. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She'd acted in self-defense in a moment of violated dignity, but she'd opened a door that couldn't be closed. Humans were now soul takers just like We're becoming like them, she said to Doctor. No, the doctor replied firmly. They take souls as conquest. We're taking them in desperation in defense. There's a difference. Is there? They started soul extraction somehow. Maybe they had noble reasons too. Maybe it began with self-defense and grew into something else. Wei, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. The question isn't how it began, it's what you do next. You're still holding that commander's soul, Sarah, for 3 weeks now. You could have absorbed it like the dew. You could have released it, but you haven't. Why? Sarah looked down at her hands. Al's presence had become almost familiar. She could feel his thoughts more clearly now. His fear had faded somewhat, replaced by confusion and something else. Curiosity, maybe. Wonder. Because he's a person, Sarah said simply. Whatever he did, whatever his people do, he's still a thinking, feeling being. I can't just kill him or eat him. That's not who I am. Then what will you do? I don't know yet. The Empire's response came through official channels. An ultimatum delivered to every major government on Earth. Cease all soul extraction immediately. Surrender all captured souls. Submit to protectorate status within 30 days or face total war. The message was clear. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years through their monopoly on soul manipulation. They couldn't allow humans to break that monopoly and survive. General Martinez called an emergency meeting. Sarah attended, still carrying Al's soul. She'd become a symbol, the first human to pull a soul. Where she went, crowds gathered. Some called her a hero, others called her a monster. She didn't feel like either. We can't win a war, Martinez said bluntly. They have superior technology, more ships, and they've been fighting for. Our only advantage is soul extraction, and they're better at it than we are. They've had millions of years of practice. So we surrender? Someone asked. No, Sarah said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. No, we don't surrender, but we don't fight the way they expect either. She stood up, cradling Al's soul carefully. They extract souls to conquer, to consume, to strengthen themselves by destroying others. That's all they know, but we're not like that. Then what are we like? Martinez asked. Sarah thought about James, still holding his friend's soul, about clinging to her wife's essence, about Diana, who grabbed a soul not for power but for vengeance, for love of her daughter. We're like people who hold on, she said. When someone we love is slipping away, we grab them. We don't let go. We hold on even when it's impossible, even when it hurts. That's what humans do. She looked around the room. They taught us to take souls, but maybe we can teach them something else. Maybe we can teach them to give souls back. Doctor leaned forward. You think you can return Al's soul to his body? I don't know, but I'm going to try. They said it's impossible. 3 weeks ago, they said humans taking souls was impossible. Sarah smiled grimly. Maybe we specialize in impossible things. Wei nodded slowly. Extraction is an act of separation, violence, but returning a soul would be an act of unity, healing. That requires a different emotion entirely. What emotion? Sarah asked. Compassion, Wei said simply. Empathy, the ability to feel another's suffering as your own and want to ease it, the extract through dominance. Perhaps humans can heal through care. Sarah looked down at her hands, at the invisible weight she'd carried for 3 weeks. Al's consciousness pulsed against hers, and for the first time she deliberately opened herself to it. She felt his fear, yes, but also his memories, his love for his family, his pride in his service, his confusion at being trapped in human hands. He wasn't a monster. He was a person who'd been taught that might made right, that taking souls was natural and necessary. He'd hurt her, yes, but he didn't deserve to be trapped forever in this formless existence. I'll need his body, Sarah said. In time, in quiet, I can't promise this will work. If it does work, Martinez said slowly, and we can return souls, we'd have something that don't. We could heal what they can only break. That could change everything, Doctor agreed. Sarah wasn't thinking about changing everything. She was thinking about one soul, one alien commander who'd made a terrible mistake and paid an impossible price. If she could fix that, maybe there was hope for everything else. Bring me Al's body, she said. Let's see if impossible works both ways. Part 3. They brought Al's body to a medical facility in Geneva. Sarah hadn't seen him since the day she'd pulled his soul. The commander lay on a bed, tubes and monitors attached to his massive frame. His chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity. His golden eyes stared at nothing. Sarah sat beside him, still cradling his soul. She'd been holding it for 4 weeks now. Her hands ached, her mind ached, but she didn't dare let go. "Ready?" Doctor asked. Sarah wasn't ready. She had no idea what she was doing, but she nodded anyway. Wei sat on her other side. Remember, extraction came from rage and violation. To return a soul, you must do the opposite. You must open yourself completely, make yourself vulnerable, invite him back in rather than forcing him out. It sounded impossible, but then everything about this situation was impossible. Sarah closed her eyes. She'd spent 4 weeks learning to feel Al's presence, to understand the boundaries between his consciousness and hers. Now she had to blur those boundaries intentionally. She thought about what Wei had taught her: compassion, empathy, the ability to feel another's pain. Al was terrified. She could feel that clearly now. He'd been trapped outside his body for a month, conscious but unable to move, speak, or touch the physical world. He was a warrior, a commander, reduced to a helpless passenger in a human's hands. Sarah felt his fear, really felt it. She let it wash over her, let it become her own. She understood what it was like to be powerless, violated, trapped. He'd made her feel that way when he grabbed her hair, and she'd made him feel it 1,000 times worse when she pulled his soul. They'd hurt each other, and now she wanted to heal that hurt. She pressed her hands against Al's forehead. His skin was cool, dry. She could feel his soul pulsing in her mental grip, and she could sense his empty body beneath her fingers. They were so close. His consciousness and his body, separated by the thinnest barrier. "Come back," she whispered. "Please come back." Nothing happened. Sarah tried again, pushing harder. The soul resisted, or maybe it didn't know how to return. 4 weeks of separation had created a gap that simple proximity couldn't bridge. She felt tears on her cheeks. This had to work. She couldn't hold Al forever. His consciousness would eventually fade, or she would. One way or another, time was running out. "You're trying to force it," Wei said softly. "Like extraction in reverse. That won't work." "Then what do I do?" "Stop trying, start feeling." Sarah took a shuddering breath. She thought about why she was doing this. Not because she was ordered to, not because it would help humanity's political position, but because holding another being's soul for 4 weeks had taught her something fundamental. Consciousness was precious, fragile. Every thinking being was a universe unto themselves, full of memories and hopes and fears. Al had memories of his children, still young by standards. He had a partner who missed him. He had subordinates who respected him, friends who cared about him. He was someone, and she'd taken that someone away. The rage that had fueled her extraction was long gone. What remained was something quieter but deeper: regret, responsibility, the need to fix what she'd broken. And beneath that, something else, something she hadn't expected: care. She cared about Al. After 4 weeks of holding his consciousness, feeling his thoughts, understanding his fears, she actually cared about him as a person. Not as an alien or an enemy, but as a fellow being who was suffering. Sarah opened herself to that feeling. She let it fill her completely. And then she did something that had never learned to do. She let go. Not of Al's soul itself, but of her control over it. She stopped holding on and started inviting in. She made space in her mind and heart and whispered, "You belong in your body. Go home. Please go home." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Al's soul moved. Not away from her, but through her. She felt his consciousness flow through her mind like water, touching everything, seeing everything she was. He felt her exhaustion, her determination, her care. He understood, finally, what she'd been trying to do. The soul passed through her, and into the body beneath her hands. Al gasped. His back arched, his hands clenched into fists, his golden eyes, empty for 4 weeks, suddenly focused. They found Sarah's face, and recognition flared in them. "You," he breathed in a rasping voice, "you gave it back." Sarah sat back, her hands empty for the first time in a month. She felt lighter than air. "I'm sorry I took it. I didn't mean to. I didn't know." "I know." Al sat up slowly, monitors beeping in alarm. Doctor rushed forward, but the commander waved her away. "I felt your thoughts as you returned my soul. I know what you felt, what you did." He looked down at his hands, flexing his 3 fingers. "I've extracted thousands of souls in my career. Never once did I consider returning one. Never thought it possible." He met Sarah's eyes. "You carried me for 4 weeks. You could have consumed my essence for power, as we do. You could have released me into nothing. Instead, you held me carefully and tried to fix what you broke." "That's what humans do," Sarah said simply. "We try to fix things." Word of Al's restoration spread through both human and channels within hours. The impossible had happened twice now. First, humans had taken souls. Now they'd returned one. The Empire's response was immediate. Their deadline for Earth's surrender was postponed. Instead, they sent ambassadors. Real ones this time, not warriors pretending at diplomacy. The elderly who'd witnessed the original incident returned. His name was, and he was a high scholar, an expert in soul mechanics and history. He met with Sarah in the same negotiation room where everything had begun. Al attended too, recovered enough to walk though still weak. The commander had insisted on being present. "Show me," said without preamble. "Show me how you returned his soul." Sarah explained as best she could, the opening of herself, the letting go, the invitation rather than the command. Listened intently. When she finished, he sat in silence for a long time. "We've been doing it wrong," he said finally. "For 10,000 years we've been doing it wrong." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. The old scholar's skin seemed to pale further. "Our species is dying, has been for, our souls fragment over time, breaking apart. We discovered extraction as a way to survive. We absorb other souls to repair our own. It worked for a while. But the absorbed souls don't integrate properly. They're taken by force, consumed without consent. They strengthen us temporarily, but the fundamental problem remains." He looked at Sarah with an expression of profound sadness. "We've conquered 47 species, extracting millions of souls over thousands of years, all to extend our existence. But we're still dying, still fragmenting. We just condemned millions of beings to oblivion for a temporary fix to a permanent problem." "You didn't know there was another way," Al said quietly. "We didn't look for one," corrected. "We found a method that worked well enough, and we built an empire on it. We became so skilled at taking that we forgot how to give." He turned to Sarah. "What you did, opening yourself, inviting the soul back with compassion, that's integration, not consumption. True healing, not temporary repair. If we could learn that." "You think you could heal your species?" Doctor asked. "I don't know, but it's the first hope we've had in 10,000 years." Over the following weeks, an unprecedented exchange began. Scholars came to Earth to study what Sarah and others had done. They learned about human emotion, about compassion and empathy. In return, they taught humans about soul mechanics, about the biological and non-biological aspects of consciousness. James, still holding his friend's soul, was the second to attempt a restoration. He'd been carrying for 6 weeks, holding on desperately. With Way's guidance and Sarah's example, he opened himself to grief and love and fierce longing. Soul flowed back into his body. His heart, which had stopped during the ambush, began beating again. Against all medical explanation, gasped and lived. Tried next. Her wife had been dead for 7 weeks, her body preserved in medical stasis. When invited her wife's soul back with love and acceptance and the ache of shared years, the restoration worked. Her wife woke up, weak but alive. The dead were coming back. Not all of them. Restoration had to happen quickly before the body deteriorated too far, but enough came back to prove the point. Humans could heal what they had only learned to break. They began to change, and other scholars worked with human teachers, learning to access emotions they'd suppressed for generations. Were not naturally cold people, it turned out. They just spent 10,000 years training themselves to be emotionless because emotion interfered with extraction. But emotion was necessary for restoration. The first to successfully restore a soul was a warrior named Iz. She'd extracted a human soldier during a raid. Racked with guilt afterward, she asked to learn Sarah's method. It took 3 weeks of practice, of opening herself to feelings her culture had forbidden. When she finally managed it, when she restored the human soldier's soul with tears streaming down her face, the observers wept too. They could heal, they could give back. They weren't doomed to be takers forever. 6 months after Sarah pulled Al's soul, representatives of Earth and the Empire signed a treaty. Not a surrender or a protectorate agreement, but a partnership that would share their technology and knowledge. Humans would teach them emotional healing and soul restoration. Together, they would work to repair the damage done over 10,000 years of extraction. They would return to the 47 conquered species, not as masters but as students, learning to give back what they'd taken. It would take generations. Many of the extracted souls were long gone, consumed or dissipated, but many remained held in repositories stored like batteries. Those could potentially be returned, restored, given a